Namaste, everybody, and welcome to Aapka Pundit. Are you working for someone right now? Would you like to start a business in the future? Would you like to know what is a good time when you could start the business? Would you also like to know whether it is in your destiny to own your own business or not? Well, stick around because today we are going to do the astrology of entrepreneurship. So in today's video, we are going to be talking about the parameters, the combinations in your chart which would incline you to start your own business, be your own boss, be independent, and not be in service. Now, you could be in service at this point in time, but you have aspirations to start your own business. So, what would be a good time to start your own business? Would you be successful or not in that business? We are going to look at all those factors in this video. So, without further ado, let's start with the parameters first and foremost. The first parameter that we have to look at is that Mars and Mercury should have a combination. What I mean by combination is they should either aspect each other by placement or conjunction or even subtle things like being in square or a trine from each other or be in each other's nakshatra. These are subtle combinations but very, very important. So the first parameter as I laid down was that Mars and Mercury should have some kind of a combination. Now this is very important, and the reason being is Mars is the planet of aggression. If you are doing your own business, you don't have anybody telling you that this is what you need to do, and if you this is your job, so to speak. You have to do everything by yourself. So it you really need a strong Mars in that case. Also, Mercury is the planet of business, and a strong Mercury in your chart always helps, in order to be a good businessman. So, Mars and Mercury are these planets which should have a combination in your chart. The second parameter is that Mars and Mercury should either be connected with the second house, second lord, or the 11th house and the 11th lord. Now, we know that the second house is one of the houses for wealth, and 11th house is the house for gains. So Mars and Mercury, if they make a pact, which is placement, aspect, or conjunction with the second house, second lord, or the 11th house, 11th lord, that would again incline someone to start their own business or be independent and not work for somebody. The third combination, or the third parameter that we would look at, is the aspect of Mars onto the 10th house or to the 10th lord. Again, like I explained before, Mars is the planet of aggression. Your 10th house is the house of karma. So you want Mars to influence your karma in an aggressive way so that you can go out, do things for yourself, and achieve things for yourself. So the third parameter is that Mars should be making an aspect onto the 10th house or the 10th lord. The fourth parameter is that the third house or the third lord should have some kind of a combination with the 11th lord. Now, the third house in Vedic astrology is the house of initiative, and the 11th house is the house of gains. So, any initiative that would result in a gain, that's the basic premise on which one goes by when they talk about doing business. So, because profit making is the eventual goal, I do understand that there could be some people who could be in business for different reasons, but primarily the main reason why one would like to be in business is to make a profit, is to make a good income. And so in that regard, third house, third lord should be aspecting or be placed either in the 11th house, or be making some kind of a conjunction with the 11th lord. So there should be a 3-11 combination there as well. And the last but Very, very important factor is Saturn. Saturn should not be aspecting the 10th house or the 10th lord if you want to be in business. This is not to say that you cannot be in business if Saturn aspects your 10th house or the 10th lord. You can be. But here's my research. If Saturn aspects your 10th house or the 10th lord, in that case, you would either be in a family business or you would initially be in service and then start your own business. You would not be in business right from the get go. This has been my research so far. So these are the five basic parameters that I've laid down. And now we are going to see charts based on these five parameters and see how well they fit. Let me also tell you one thing here. There is no rule in astrology that is applicable to absolutely 100% of the charts. And here, even more so, because what we are doing is a first time research. There have been other researches that have been carried out by different schools, that have been carried out by different astrologers, with regards to entrepreneurship. But again, this has nothing to do with those researches. This is an independent research based on many, many charts that I have seen. So the first chart that we have today, which is on the screen right now, is the chart of the richest person on the face of this earth, which is Bill Gates. It's a pretty extraordinary chart, and we are not going to go into doing the entire chart analysis, but we are just going to see the parameters that we laid out, how they fit into his chart. The first parameter that we laid out was that Mars and Mercury should be making a combination. So in this Gemini ascendant chart, we clearly see Mars and Mercury in the fourth house, forming, multiple Dhani yogas as well as other yogas as well. But primarily, let's just stick to the combination. Mars and Mercury make a combination. Now, the second parameter was that Mars and Mercury should either have some kind of a connection with the second house or the second lord. If you look at the chart carefully, Moon is the second lord, and Moon is aspecting on to Mars and Mercury. So the second parameter also applies. The third parameter was to do with Mars having an aspect on the 10th house or the 10th lord. In this case, Mars clearly from the fourth house aspects the 10th house. So the third parameter is fulfilled as well. The fourth parameter that we had was that the third lord or third house should have some combination with the 11th lord or the 11th house. In this case, Sun, which is the third lord, is in the fifth house, aspecting onto the 11th house. So the 311 combination also exists in the chart. And lastly, Saturn should not be making any connection with the 10th house or the 10th lord. In this chart, Saturn in the fifth house is making no connection with the 10th house and also not making any connection with the 10th lord, which is Jupiter. So all the parameters that are laid out applies in toto with this chart. The next chart that we have on the screen here belongs to the media mogul Ted Turner, who is a billionaire in his own right. And if you see his chart carefully, it is a Scorpio ascendant chart. And the first parameter was that Mars and Mercury should be having a connection. Now, do you see the connection between Mars and Mercury in his chart? Well, I am sure you noticed the exchange. Mars and Mercury exchange in his chart. Now, let me stress one fact here. An exchange is one of the strongest ways by which two planets can be connected. So here Mars and Mercury are very, very strongly connected, especially if you look at the degrees of those two planets. So it's a very powerful exchange, and the first parameter completely and clearly applies in this case. The second parameter has to do with Mars and Mercury having an aspect with the second house or the 11th house. Well, in his case, the 11th lord happens to be Mercury itself, and Mars is in the 11th house. So there is that um, 11 2 connection with Mercury as well as Mars. The third parameter was that Mars should be aspecting on to the 10th house or the 10th lord. That does not apply in this chart. Mars does not aspect the 10th house or the 10th lord. The fourth parameter was that the third lord should have a connection with the 11th house or the 11th lord. In this case, what we see is that Saturn is the third lord placed in the fifth house. So obviously from the fifth house, it would aspect the 11th house. So the 311 connection is there in this chart as well. And lastly, Saturn does not aspect the fifth house or the fifth lord. So out of five parameters, four apply in total. So this again is a chart where I would say pretty much all the parameters do apply. The third chart that we have here belongs to the billionaire owner of the New England Patriots, Robert Kraft. And again, it's a Scorpio ascendant chart. And let's go through the parameters again. The first parameter was Mars and Mercury having a connection. Well, in this case, Mars and Mercury do not have a connection. So that parameter does not apply. The second parameter was to do with Mars and Mercury having a connection either with the second house or the second lord or the 11th house, 11th lord. In this case, Mercury itself is the 11th lord, and Mars aspects onto Jupiter, which is the second lord. So the Mars Mercury connection with 211 is established there. The third parameter was to do with Mars aspecting on to the 10th house, 10th lord. In this case, Mars aspects onto the Sun by the fourth aspect, and also by the seventh aspect aspects the 10th house. So it aspects the 10th lord as well as the 10th house. So that connection is made as well. Now Saturn, which happens to be the third lord, aspects onto Mercury. So there is the 311 connection as well. And lastly, Saturn does not aspect the 10th lord or the 10th house. So four of the five parameters fit Robert Kraft's chart as well. The next chart that we have on the screen belongs to the famous Frenchman Bernard Arnault, who is the owner of LVMH, the luxury brand company. And it's a very interesting chart, but again, we're not going to go into the details of the chart, but just going to stick with our parameters here. And the first parameter of Mars and Mercury making a connection together, that does not really exist here. The second parameter is to do with Mars and Mercury having a connection with the second or the 11th houses or the lords. And in this case, we see that Mercury happens to be the 11th as well as the second lord, and Mars aspects on to the second house. So that connection does exist. Mars from the seventh house also aspects onto the 10th house and is conjunct the 10th lord. So that connection also exists. The 311 connection is really not there in this chart. And lastly, Saturn in this case does aspect the 10th house and the 10th lord. Now go back and remember what I said about Saturn aspecting the 10th house and the 10th lord. In Bernard Arnault's case, he did not start LVMH from the get-go. He was in a business that his father had started. It was a construction business that he started his career with. And that is the reason why I said whenever Saturn aspects the 10th house or the 10th lord, you either start in service or you are part of a family business. And that's exactly what happened in his case. He his career started in the family business. It was only later on that he convinced his father to sell the family business and then buy shares in LVMH, which he now completely owns. So you see the effect of Saturn onto the 10th house and 10th lord and the result that it gave. The final chart of our presentation today belongs to Michael Bloomberg, the billionaire owner of Bloomberg TV and also the ex-mayor of New York. Now, if you look at the chart, the first parameter does not apply because Mars and Mercury have no connection. The second parameter partially applies because Mars has no connection with the second or the 11th lord or the houses, but Mercury does have a conjunction with Venus, which is the 11th lord. Mars is the 10th lord in the 10th house, so that connection is definitely there. The third parameter does apply. And the fourth parameter, where the 311 connection that exists in this chart because Mercury and Venus are conjunct. So the 311 connection, the lords of third and 11th houses are there. And lastly, Saturn in this case does aspect the 10th house and the 10th lord. Now again, what did I say about Saturn aspecting the 10th house or the 10th lord? You are either in a family business, like in the previous chart of Bernard Arnault, or you start your career working for someone. And even in Michael Bloomberg's case, he started his career working in the banking industry and was a very successful banker before he was fired and then, moved on to work and start Bloomberg TV. So, the Saturn having its aspect on the 10th house, 10th lord, it did show its result as well. And finally, I just want to make a point here. A lot of people would ask, well, what's the right time to, start a business? I would say that it has to do with the third lord and the third house, or planets in the third house. So whenever you have planets that are in the third house, because remember, third house is the eighth from the eighth. So, a shift, a change, a break, all those things, do take place when planets are in the third house. So whenever you have planets in the third house and you're running the Mahadasha or the Antardasha of those planets, or planets that are very tightly conjunct the third lord or aspected by the third lord, that I would say is a good time where you could, break out, branch out, and, start something of your own. And lastly, we always get asked this question as to what is the extent of my success. Well, that is a completely different topic because it would depend on your Raj Yogas, Dhani Yogas, and the, how potent your planets are in terms of giving its result. So that's a completely separate topic, and we would have to look at the strength of planets and the transits, Mahadasha, Antardasha that you're running to gauge all that. But broadly speaking, when it comes to starting your own business and whether you can have your own business and what is a good time, I think this article would answer all those questions for you. So do follow us on Facebook. Do also subscribe to our YouTube channel, and do sign up on our website as well. We would be doing a lot more research topics and be posting videos and articles on our website and on YouTube and Facebook as well. So till the time we meet again, namaste.